All right, guys. Hopefully, we're recording at this point. Welcome back. I hope you guys had a wonderful Easter. I really do. Hope you enjoyed those 4 days extra off that we had, um, that long weekend. It was really nice for me. I hope it was for you as well. We're going to get right back into it though today. I did already send you guys out a link to complete the quiz if you didn't on Wednesday. Wednesday, I think, is when I. No, I'm sorry. I either posted it Wednesday or Tuesday of last week. I can't remember, but whenever I posted it, you were supposed to have it done by like the following day. Some people didn't do that. I did have two people, I believe, that emailed me and kind of said that they were having trouble accessing it. Um, so thank you to those who made me aware of that. But there were still several people that just didn't do it. Guys, listen. You know, uh, we're doing the best that we can here with the kind of situation that we're in, this unprecedented sort of situation. But I need your assistance. Okay, if you're having trouble with something, by all means, tell me, and I will do my best to kind of make it easier on you to kind of correct whatever problem you might come across. But I need you to put the effort in order to do that. Again, most of you guys are. This is just for the couple people that are kind of slacking, kind of treating this like it's summer vacation. We're not there yet, guys. We will be there. I don't know if we're going to be coming back to school or not. We're just going to have to take that one by ear, but hopefully we will. Hopefully I'll get to see you guys again before the test, and we get to frantically kind of review for it. But we are moving right along. I hope to get done with this chapter relatively quickly. This chapter is only 2 modules. We're going to cover 1 module today in a little lecture time that we have. I promise I won't be super long. We'll cover the next module the next time. And I think this unit's only 2 chapters. So that means that we will be on the Unit 7. This is Unit 6. We'll be on Unit 7 after this, which is the last unit that is going to be covered on the test. So I think we're gonna do just fine getting through this material. Especially, we're gonna continue, guys, the everyday stuff. Okay, where I post something every day to kind of help us to get through as much material as possible. I hope this is a benefit to you, other than the few questions that I've asked, and I'm not going to have a question today. Hopefully that doesn't mean you're about to turn this off, but I won't have a question today. But other than that and the quizzes, I know there's not a lot of other material, but again, let me know what questions you have so I can try and help you. Let's go ahead, before we get started anything else, let's pray. And then we'll talk about non-renewable energy. This is a topic, guys, you are very well familiar with, simply because it's part of your life. Even though most of you guys don't pay for your electricity, you reap the benefit of it. You pay for your gas, probably in your car, at least sometimes. You are familiar with oil. These are all very familiar terms for us. So let's go ahead and pray, and then we'll get into it. Lord God, I just lift up this group. I thank you, Lord, for them. Thank you for those that are watching these videos. I know not everyone is. I pray that it's helpful. I pray that this kind of solidifies that information and helps it to kind of embed itself into the mind so that we can recall this stuff when we do take that AP final. Lord, I just pray that you be with us in these crazy, uncertain times. Help us, Lord, to be diligent and to be respectful of others, to do what we need to do to stop the spread of disease, Lord. But, Lord, help us not to be fearful, because we know the God who this disease bows to. Lord, I just pray that you bless this time. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. All right. So despite our best efforts, again, I've talked to you guys about battery technology and how we are increasingly moving towards a electric sort of future, which both Thomas Edison and Nikola Tesla kind of dreamed of. Eventually, guys, I really believe that our biggest dependency, our biggest energy source right now is oil. And I truly believe that gas and coal are not going anywhere, at least not in the foreseeable future. I do think renewable energies will continue to increase, things like solar and wind, and we will see gas, coal, and oil, all 3 of them, decline. But oil, shockingly enough, is still our biggest import, and it's our biggest non-renewable energy resource. Not by a lot. Okay, it only beats coal out by a few percentage. but it's still the biggest one. That one's the one that's going to die. Okay, over time, it's going to take a really long time, and we're going to have to come up with some new technologies in order to do it. But eventually, I think 10, 15, 25 years from now, by the time I'm old and gray and hopefully not teaching anymore, okay, I think that oil will be gone. I still think we'll be burning coal. We have so much coal reserves that it's just unlikely that we're going to stop using that cheap resource. And I still think that natural gas is going to heat our homes for an extended period of time. But there are things that are going to shift all of our usage for all of these non-renewable resources. There is a proposal right now in many states to make it mandatory for every new house built to install solar paneling. That's just one example. If that passes, which I hope it does, I think if I was going to build a new house, I would put solar paneling up. Okay, it seems like a no-brainer to me. And don't get me wrong, I understand that we live in the Midwest and we don't get nearly as much sun as someplace like, Florida or, pretty much anywhere other than here. There's months out of the year that we get a lot, however. And you really only need like 3 hours worth of sunlight for it to drastically reduce your dependency on gas, coal, and oil. And if you're sitting there going, well, wait a minute, Mr. Eddie, I don't have natural gas and I don't use coal to heat my house. I know you don't, but you still generate electricity using that coal, or gas, or nuclear, or perhaps even oil. Okay, speaking of those 4 different types, these are all considered fossil fuels. And they're considered that, you guys have heard that term, because literally it is a fossilized form of fuel. Okay, when we dig up coal, or we pump out oil, or we pump out natural gas, we are basically tapping into a resource that is anywhere from 50 to 350 million years old. Okay, it is the plants of years ago. Okay? There was a time period where plants flourished. Plants still flourish. They were just bigger at one point. But if you look outside right now, you can see hundreds. I mean, literally, just even in this classroom, I can see hundreds of trees. Maybe not hundreds, but I can see lots of trees, dozens and dozens of trees just out my window here. Now, what happens is those trees fall down and we have decomposers that come in and they specialize in breaking those trees down, that plant matter down. However, sometimes when you have lots of vegetation that breaks down over lots of time and it gets covered by something has to cover it, either water, or soil, or volcanic ash, whatever it might be, something has to cover it and basically take away the oxygen supply from it. If you do that, it gets preserved and it gets fossilized. And that tree will turn into coal, which will later turn into oil, which will release natural gas. And a few of the atoms within that tree might break down to form isotopes that become radioactive. And that's where we get all of these different renewable resources in the form of coal, oil, natural gas, and nuclear fuel. Nuclear fuel, you get a lot. You get a lot of bang for your buck. You don't need a lot of that resource to create a lot of power. But all the other ones, you need quite a bit of coal, or oil, or natural gas to heat certain things. It's considered non-renewable. If you sit there, if you're kind of listening, you probably just heard me say there's hundreds of trees just outside of my window, outside of this building right now, in the Alton area. There's hundreds of trees. So why then is there not hundreds of fossil fuel reservoirs, if you will, that are being replenished at almost a daily rate? Well, it has to fall under those very odd circumstances where something covers up that material. And it needs lots and lots of time in order for pressure and heat to fossilize that material. So realistically, they're considered non-renewable because they cannot be replenished in a meaningful amount of time. Does that not mean that other things are being fossilized right now? Of course they are. But it's not going to be something that you can just like plant like you can, a crop and expect it to be available to you next year. So because of that, we call it a non-renewable resource. All right. So, where's all this non-renewable resource being distributed? Not very evenly, I'm afraid. Okay, we do distribute our use of energy across the world. However, we take an unfair portion, as we often do here in the United States, as well as in most of the developed world. 20% of the world's population uses 50% of the world's energy supply. We are part of that 20%, being the industrialized world that we are. Okay, there's so much disparity that they had to actually create two subcategories of energy sources. Commercial energy sources, which is really what you're familiar with, okay? These are the things like electricity that's delivered from a power plant. It's something that is bought and sold, okay? And then subsistent energy sources, something that you're probably not very familiar with, okay? You guys maybe use subsistent energy sources when you're camping, okay? If you guys have ever, looked at your siblings, or maybe even you were told at one time, all right, go and collect firewood, and so you go and you gather the materials that you need to, cook your hot dog later. That would be an example of subsistence energy sources. The turning on your gas stove would be an example of commercial energy sources. Okay? So we're using the vast majority of the energy that's found around the world. 81% of that energy comes from fossil fuels. Love this little graphic here. It kind of highlights quite a bit of information. Of that 81%, 34% is still oil. And that's because our largest expense is transportation. And we're going to talk about that more. But natural gas has jumped in recent years. It's actually over 21%. It's 22%. I think this is down to 33. I don't know. These are slightly off. These are old figures. But still, very good representation. Nuclear's up a little bit, and renewables up a little bit as well. Or actually, I'm sorry, nuclear might be down. Renewables definitely up a little bit. But regardless, these are still fairly consistent numbers. Oil is still king. Natural gas is still rising. Coal, though, is still number 2. And again, it will always probably be number 2, if not number 1 here in the future, because coal is just so abundant here in the United States in particular. All right. So these are more accurate numbers. Oil at 31%, coal at 28%, and natural gas at 22%. See some slight differences there. These are the big three. These are the heavy hitters, if you will, the ones that we have been using for centuries now. Definitely decades, but I think even into centuries. And they're ones that we're going to continue to use probably decades from now. So, right now, something interesting is actually happening with oil. Again, the biggest one that we consume at 31%. The main reason for that, guys, because we love our cars. We're going to talk more about that. Cars mean freedom. Means that you can get from point A to point B. We have an extensive roadwork system in the United States just for that purpose. And people take advantage of it. Sometimes we don't think about the environment very often when we do it. I have taken hour-long trips. I drove to Louisville just last summer. Oh no, 2 summers ago. 2 summers ago, I believe. And I took that 4-hour trip by myself. Okay. Is that a good use of resources? The amount of oil that was consumed in order for me to get there, just for me to travel, is a horrible use of resources, very inefficient. But still, I love the fact that I could do that. The freedom that I have and that you have in order to do those types of things is important. So, but we need to figure out a way to make that freedom still there, still available to us, while making it more efficient. But these are the big three. Coal is still the number 1 producer of electricity in the United States, not in Illinois. I used to think that, and maybe even said that at the beginning of the year, but I was later corrected. I did some more research and found out that we produce the majority of our, especially in the northern part of the state, the majority of our electricity through nuclear power. Coal, though, is still number 2 for us, and it's number 1 when it comes to electricity generation for most of the states. Natural gas is how we heat most of our homes. You probably have natural gas in your house. I have natural gas in my house. If it gets to you. If it is piped to your home, it is the preferred method simply because it's much more efficient to heat water and your home, and air for that matter, with natural gas than it is with electricity. All right. We can't talk about those three, though, or even just any sort of energy production, without thinking about energy efficiency. And I just told you guys a second ago, it's more efficient to heat your water and your air in your house with natural gas than it is to heat it with a resistive heater through electricity. And the reason that, or the way that we can calculate that is what's called the EROEI formula. This is the energy return or energy investment formula. Energy return on energy investment formula. So it's really simple to calculate. You have to take two things into consideration when you're talking about efficiency. You have to think about the efficiency of the process to obtain the fuel. So that includes, like, if you're digging for coal, or if you're trying to pump oil out of the ground, that takes energy. That's an energy requirement to obtain that fuel. And then the process it takes to convert that fuel. Energy, the process, not sure why that bracket's there, sorry. The process that converts the fuel into work. Because that's really what we're trying to do. We're trying to take the energy found within these non-renewable sources and convert them to usable work. Okay? That might be work in the form of, by the way, for those of you who don't know, work is just moving distance over time. Okay? I'm sorry, that's speed. It's moving something that has mass a distance. Okay? That's all work is. So if I pushed on this wall, for example, I might feel like I'm doing work to the wall, but because it's not moving, actually no work is being done. However, if I pick up this, this physical science book that I have here, if I pick this guy up and I move it across the room, then I am taking a mass and I'm moving it a distance. So I am doing work. Okay, and it takes energy to do that. Don't believe me? Try, walking that book around the room 27 times, or 200 times, whatever it might be. You're going to exert a certain amount of force. It's going to get tiring over time because you're utilizing energy. The efficiency of that is measured using this formula. You take the energy obtained from the fuel and you divide it by the energy invested to obtain the fuel. So again, this is the cost basically of the energy divided by the amount of energy that the fuel gives you divided by the cost of the energy. So it's a fairly simple calculation. The larger the EROEI, man, too many letters in that acronym, the more efficient and thus more desirable the energy source. All right. Lost my marker here. There it is. So I told you guys we're going to talk about transportation because in the United States, it's just such a big part. I still think that electricity, if I'm not mistaken, is 40%. But when 30%, because we use oil for other things, oil, as we saw at the refinery, is used to make lots of different products, and not just for transportation. But the vast majority of it is for transportation. We also use it for lubricants and things of that nature. But 30% of all the energy that goes in the United States is used for transportation. Okay. Again, I'm just as bad as anyone else. I drove here today in an SUV, a small SUV, but still an SUV, by myself. I was the only one in the car. I'm going to drive home. I need to get gas, ironically. I'm going to drive home by myself in this big SUV. It takes a lot of energy to move it. Okay, it's heavy. It's an old Ford Escape. Okay, I promise you it's not efficient. I think I get 20 miles per gallon. It's horrible. It's really bad. My minivan, which is way bigger, actually does better because it's just a newer car. It still doesn't do very good though. Neither of my cars are very fuel efficient. So I am part of the problem when it comes to this. Absolutely, I completely admit it. Gasoline, though, has been king for so long because gasoline has an incredible energy to mass ratio. That's the main thing. It's the fact that we can transport gasoline and it provides lots of energy via the same amount of material. It has a very high energy density. That's really what we're getting at there. Meaning that for every kilogram of gas, you get a lot of energy per kilogram. It's not the same as like batteries, for example. The biggest issue that we have with batteries right now is that they're too big, okay, for the amount of energy that they provide. You get way less energy per kilogram than you do with gasoline. Okay, I saw a video on this. It was done by Engineering Explained. If you guys have never watched those, I need to talk to Mrs. Sands, who teaches the engineering class. For those of you who don't know, and I needed to tell her about his videos because they're amazing. And one of the things that he focuses a lot on electric vehicles because he has a Tesla and he just talks about them a lot. But he demonstrates this, and it's amazing how many batteries it takes to replace just 1 gallon of gas. Okay? And that's why Teslas in particular are really, really heavy, because they're transporting a huge amount of batteries with them. Now, not only is the mass energy to mass ratio really good for gas, but the other issue that we have, the thing that we have to overcome, is just our own tendencies. We like big cars. Okay? Trust me, I drove a small car for about 9 years, a little Chevy Cruze, and I love that car. It was a great car. Would I want to get in the car and like drive, to Florida in it? No, it would be horrible. Okay, as much as I really enjoyed that car and it was great for getting from point A to point B around town, it had a fatal flaw, and that was the fact that it was really, really small. Okay. There's a reason that 50% of all U.S. vehicles today are light trucks. Now, that light truck category includes all small trucks, okay? Basically F-150 and smaller. I say F-150 simply because that's the most sold truck in the United States. It also includes minivans and SUVs, okay? So there's a lot working in that light work truck category. There's a lot of cars, but they're also the most popular cars. Again, 50%. That's amazing to me. 50% of all U.S. Vehicles sold fall into that category, which means that we're buying these very large cars. Why? Because they're convenient. We like them. We like the space. It wouldn't be bad to drive to Florida in a 4-door F-150. I'd be okay with that. Okay? Driving in my Escape, not so much. However, the problem that we have with this really high-dense fuel and these really heavy trucks is that, first off, the fuel produces a lot of air pollutants, and those really big, large vehicles like trucks, minivans, SUVs, they use a lot of fuel. They are not very fuel efficient. I just told you, I think my car gets under 20 miles per gallon. My minivan gets like 23 miles per gallon on the highway. Okay, they're not doing very well. Okay, they're not very efficient because they're heavy and they're big. So these are the things that as a country we have to kind of face and understand in order to hopefully curb our appetite for these really large vehicles. Does that mean that your mom and dad, if they even heard me talk about this, that they're going to run out and sell their SUV and go get a small car? Probably not. But we need to think about ways that we can reduce it. Our second it's actually 40% of all the energy. So it makes up more. However, oil still kind of dominates there. But our one of our largest expenses is electricity. It's the majority of what we pull out of the ground in the form of renewable or non-renewable resource goes to the production of electricity. And this makes sense. Right now, as I look before me, I have a projector that is using electricity that's projecting the screen. I have a camera that is attached to a smartphone that is recording this lecture. I have a laptop that is allowing this presentation to go forward, and I have a monitor that acts as a secondary monitor for my laptop so that I can see two things at once. All of this is running off of electricity. Okay, it's probably the most diverse and useful form of energy that we have because we use it for so many different purposes. Electricity can be altered and utilized to work almost in any scenario. It is considered a secondary source of energy. It's obtained by the conversion of a primary source. So you take something like oil or coal, more likely coal, and you use it to create electricity that then can be used to do work. Remember, that's the goal, is to do work. It's also considered an energy carrier. So it can be used to move that energy from one place to the next. We can transport it via power lines from across the country. Okay? It can go from the power plant, that can be hundreds of miles away from the actual source where the end user where that electricity is going to be utilized. So it's only about 13% that is going to make it to that end user, and even with all those losses, this is still the best form of energy that we have in terms of it being just so useful in so many different applications. So we're going to run through how electricity is generated. I assume that you guys kind of know how to do this. This is running a little long, so I'm going to try to get through it as quick as possible. We start with a primary fuel source to make heat. That can be, again, a lot of times it's coal. A lot of times here in Illinois, it's going to be nuclear power. Whatever it is, something that generates heat that is then absorbed. That heat is absorbed by water. The water gets excited. The molecules get excited, and they generate steam. So they start to boil, basically. The kinetic energy, because steam is nothing more but water molecules bouncing around really fast. That kinetic energy is used to spin a turbine. You can pressurize that steam and shoot it out onto a turbine and cause it to spin, just in the same way that your car spins a turbine inside of it to generate electricity for your car. Okay, that's the same thing that's happening inside of your vehicle. The only difference is the motor is turning that electromagnet as opposed to steam turning the turbine. So that's called your alternator, by the way. For those of you who don't know, that's what's inside your car doing that. This new current, after it is generated from the turbine, is transferred throughout the electrical grid. You can get things called combined cycles, which is something that uses natural gas, the steam, and the exhaust of the gas. So this is almost like a turbo that you put on your engine. I'm sorry for those of you who don't know much about cars. A turbo uses the exhaust from your engine, and instead of just pumping it out to the tailpipe, it recaptures it, and it causes it to spin another turbine, a small little fan, that then takes in more oxygen and pumps it back into the engine, making it more efficient and giving you more boost, more energy. So this is the same principle, just with a power plant. You're utilizing the exhaust to create more energy. Every power plant has a maximum capacity. This is a maximum electrical output, usually found in megawatts. 500 megawatts is the typical power plant in the United States. All right, very good. This is where I wanted to end, and I only got a couple minutes left. Guys, stay safe, stay healthy. I will see you tomorrow with another one of these lectures. Bye.